Welcome to our comprehensive exploration of joint Hindu family and Coparceners under Mitakshara Law. This video will guide you through the unique institution of the Hindu joint family, the concept of coparcenary, and the intricate distinctions between joint family property and separate property. We'll also discuss how these concepts have evolved, especially after the Hindu Succession Amendment Act 2005. Whether you're a student, legal professional, or simply curious about Hindu law, this journey will clarify the foundational principles and practical implications of family and property rights in Hindu society. Joint Hindu family is a distinctive institution in Hindu society. It consists of all persons lineally descended from a common ancestor, including their wives and unmarried daughters. Upon marriage, a daughter leaves her father's family and joins her husband's. Notably, a joint Hindu family is not just united in estate, but also in food and worship. However, the existence of joint estate is not essential for the constitution of a joint family. Even families without property may remain joint, and mere severance in food and worship does not constitute separation. Joint family status is acquired by birth, making property an adjunct rather than a requirement. Joint Hindu family may consist of a single male member and widows of deceased male members. For example, it could be a male Hindu, his wife, and his unmarried daughter, or a male Hindu and the widow of his deceased brother. Even two female members can constitute a joint family, but at least two members are required. An unmarried male Hindu after partition does not constitute a Hindu undivided family by himself. For taxation purposes, this unit is referred to as a Hindu undivided family, HUF. It's distinct from a composite family, which is formed by custom and agreement, where multiple families pool resources and risks. Joint Hindu family operates as a unit, represented in all affairs by its Karta or head. The Karta is responsible for managing the family's property affairs and representing the family in legal matters. This leadership role is central to the functioning of the joint family, ensuring unity and continuity. The Karta's decisions impact all members, and he acts in the best interests of the family. Understanding the role of the Karta is crucial for grasping how joint Hindu families manage their collective assets and resolve disputes. Hindu coparcenary is a much narrower body than a joint Hindu family. It includes only those who acquire an interest in coparcenary property by birth, sons, grandsons, and great-grandsons of the current property holder. Before the Hindu Succession Amendment Act 2005, only male members were Coparceners. However, the amendment made daughters Coparceners in their own right, equal to sons. The doctrine of coparcenary applies only to ancestral property, not self-acquired property. This distinction is fundamental in understanding property rights within Hindu families. Formation of a coparcenary requires a common male ancestor and his lineal descendants in the male line within 4 degrees. After the ancestor's death, the coparcenary may consist of collaterals like brothers, uncles, nephews, and cousins. Coparcenary is a creature of law, not of agreement, except in cases of adoption. The Hindu Succession Amendment Act 2005 expanded coparcenary to include daughters, granting them equal rights. This legal structure ensures that property interests are acquired by birth, shaping the dynamics of inheritance and succession. Let's visualize coparcenary with a family tree. During the lifetime of A, the male holder, his sons B and C, and daughters D1 and D2, all constitute the coparcenary along with A. This structure highlights how coparcenary is formed and maintained, with each member acquiring an interest by birth. The inclusion of daughters after the 2005 amendment further broadens the scope of coparcenary, ensuring gender equality in property rights. Understanding this illustration helps clarify the practical application of coparcenary in Hindu families. Within a coparcenary, branch families emerge as descendants grow. For example, with his sons B, C, and D and their respective sons and grandsons form the main family. Each branch, B with E and F, C with G, D with H, I, J, and K, has its own head. On A's death, the coparcenary consists of B, C, and D and their male issue. As members pass away, the coparcenary shifts with new heads and members stepping in. This dynamic structure ensures continuity and adaptation within the family. Succession in coparcenary follows a unique pattern. For instance, A inherits property from his father X, and his son B and grandson C are Coparceners. When D is born to C, he becomes a Coparcener by birth. However, E born to D is not a Coparcener until A's death. As heads of the family pass away, new generations step into the coparcenary, maintaining the lineage and property rights. This process illustrates how coparcenary adapts to changes in family structure, ensuring that property interests are preserved across generations. Coparcenary property is held collectively by all Coparceners in a quasi-corporate capacity. Lineal male and female descendants up to the 3rd generation acquire ownership in ancestral properties by birth. They can demand partition at any time, and until then each member has ownership extending over the entire property. Possession and enjoyment are common, and alienation is only possible for legal necessity with Coparceners' consent. Upon a member's death, their interest passes to surviving Coparceners. This collective ownership ensures shared rights and responsibilities within the family. Partition in a coparcenary affects the shares of each member. For example, a family with A and his sons B and C would see each take 1/3 upon partition. If D is born while the family remains joint, each would take 1/4. As members die or new ones are born, shares fluctuate. When C dies, his issue E, F, and H take per stripes as regards D and per capita among themselves. This shifting interest reflects the dynamic nature of coparcenary, where shares are not fixed but adapt to the family's composition. Hindu Succession Amendment Act 2005 marked a significant change by making daughters Coparceners in their own right, equal to sons. Sections 6, 8, and 30 of the Hindu Succession Act 1956 altered the concept of succession in Mitakshara Coparcenary. Now both male and female descendants acquire interest in Coparcenary property by birth. This progressive step ensures gender equality and empowers women within Hindu families, granting them the same rights and responsibilities as their male counterparts. Coparcenary property is classified into obstructed and unobstructed heritage. Unobstructed heritage is property acquired by birth, such as property inherited from paternal ancestors. The accrual of rights is not obstructed by the existence of the owner. Obstructed heritage, on the other hand, accrues rights only upon the death of the last owner, and is inherited by relations like parents, brothers, nephews, and uncles. Understanding these classifications helps clarify how property rights are established and transferred within Hindu families. Consider a scenario where inherits property from his brother. A's son B does not acquire any interest in the property during A's lifetime. After A's death, B inherits the property as A's heir by succession. The existence of A acts as an obstruction to B's rights in the property. This example illustrates how obstructed heritage operates, with rights accruing only upon the owner's death rather than by birth. Hindu law divides property into two main classes: joint family property, coparcenary property, and separate property, including self-acquired property. Joint family property is further divided into ancestral property and separate property of coparceners thrown into the common stock. This classification is crucial for determining rights, succession, and management of assets within Hindu families. Understanding these distinctions helps navigate the complexities of property ownership and inheritance. Joint family or coparcenary property is characterized by joint interest and possession among coparceners. It devolves by succession, not survivorship, and both male and female issue acquire interest by birth. These incidents ensure that property remains collectively owned and managed, with each member having a stake in the assets. The rules governing joint family property shape the dynamics of inheritance, succession, and partition within Hindu family. Ancestral property, according to Mitakshara Law, is inherited from paternal ancestors. Sons, grandsons, great-grandsons, and now daughters of a Mitakshara Coparcener acquire interest in such property by birth. If a person inherits property without any male or female issue, he holds it as absolute owner. However, if issue is born later, they acquire interest by birth and the owner cannot claim absolute rights. This feature ensures that ancestral property remains within the family, with rights attached from birth. When a Hindu makes a gift or bequeaths property by will, the nature of the property depends on the intention of the donor or testator. If the property is given with absolute rights, it is considered separate property in the hands of the recipient. However, if the intention is to maintain the property within the family, it may be treated as ancestral. Courts examine the language of the document and surrounding circumstances to determine the nature of the property. This distinction is vital for understanding inheritance and succession. Property acquired by joint family members through joint labor, business, profession, or vocation, with the aid of joint family property, becomes joint family or coparcenary property. Even if acquired without joint family property, there is a presumption that it is joint family property unless proven otherwise. However, this principle applies only when all members jointly acquire the property. If only some members acquire it, no such presumption arises. This rule ensures collective ownership and management of assets. Separate or self-acquired property of a coparcener may become joint family property through the doctrine of blending. If a coparcener voluntarily throws his separate property into the common stock, it becomes joint family property. A clear intention to waive separate rights must be established. The act is unilateral and based on individual volition. The doctrine applies only when coparcenary property exists. Blending does not extend to properties inherited from maternal relations, which remain separate. Imagine a joint Hindu family where the father, as head, deposits both income from joint properties and his personal earnings into a single bank account. If there is no evidence of discrimination between the sources, both incomes are blended. The Privy Council held that such self-acquisitions must be treated as joint family property, and the father cannot dispose of them by will. This example demonstrates how blending transforms separate property into joint family property, affecting rights and succession. The doctrine of blending has its limits. It cannot be applied to properties inherited from maternal relatives, which remain separate. If a member builds a house on ancestral land with his own money, other members can claim compensation for their share of the land but not the house. These boundaries ensure that only certain properties can be blended, preserving individual rights and interests within the family. Hindu, even if joint, may possess separate property that belongs exclusively to him. No other coparcener acquires interest in it by birth. The owner can sell, gift, or bequeath it to anyone. It is not liable to partition, and upon death it passes by succession to heirs, not by survivorship to coparceners. This autonomy distinguishes separate property from joint family property, granting individual control and freedom. Separate property includes obstructed heritage, gifts, government grants, property lost and recovered, income from separate property, share on partition, property held by sole surviving coparcener, separate earnings, gains of learning, and property formerly ancestral but later purchased with self-acquired funds. Each type has specific rules regarding ownership, succession, and partition. Understanding these categories helps clarify individual rights and responsibilities within Hindu families. Gains of learning, also known as vidyadhana, refer to all acquisitions made substantially by means of learning. Before 1930, income earned through professional training funded by joint family property was considered joint property. The Hindu Gains of Learning Act 1930 changed this, making gains of learning the exclusive property of the acquirer regardless of who funded the education. The act applies retrospectively, covering all types of education and training. This ensures that individuals retain ownership of their professional earnings. Hindu Gains of Learning Act 1930 is retrospective in operation. All gains of learning, whether acquired before or after the act, constitute the self-acquired property of the person acquiring them. The act defines learning broadly, including elementary, technical, scientific, and general education, as well as training for any trade, industry, profession, or vocation. This ensures that individuals benefit from their educational achievements, regardless of family contribution. Property that was once ancestral but later alienated by the family and repurchased by a member with self-acquired funds becomes separate property. This rule ensures that repurchased property is not automatically treated as ancestral, preserving the rights of the acquirer. The distinction between ancestral and separate property is crucial for determining succession and partition within Hindu families. Coparcenary property is characterized by community of interest and unity of possession. Sons, grandsons, great-grandsons, and now daughters acquire interest by birth. Prior to 1956, Coparceners could not dispose of their undivided interest by will. Gifts, sales, or mortgages require consent of other Coparceners, and Coparcenary property can be partitioned. In contrast, separate property is owned exclusively, with no interest acquired by birth. Owners can dispose of it by will, and it is not liable to partition. Ordinary partnerships are created by agreement, and a partner's issue does not acquire interest by birth. Partnerships dissolve upon a partner's death, and partners have definite shares. In contrast, a joint Hindu family firm is a creature of law with issue acquiring interest by birth. It is not dissolved by the death of a member, and shares are fluctuating. The manager is accountable to the family, and only the share of a minor Coparcener is liable for debts, not their separate property. When a member of a Hindu joint family enters into partnership with non-family members, the Indian Partnership Act governs the relationship. Other family members do not become partners, and the family as a unit is not considered a partner. Upon a partner's death, the partnership dissolves unless otherwise agreed. This distinction ensures that business partnerships with outsiders are regulated separately from family law. The manager of a joint family enters into a partnership and contributes capital from joint family funds. Contractual relations are established between the third party and the manager. The manager is accountable to the family for profits and assets. Upon the manager's death, surviving members cannot claim to continue as partners, nor can they sue for dissolution. The third party's only remedy is against the manager's estate. This arrangement clarifies the limits of family involvement in external business partnerships. The manager of a trading family enters into a partnership with strangers for the same business. Family members are liable only to the extent of their interests in family property. This rule limits the exposure of family assets and ensures that individual interests are protected. Understanding these boundaries is essential for managing risks and responsibilities in business ventures involving joint family funds. We've covered the unique institution of joint Hindu family, the concept of coparcenary, and the distinctions between joint family property and separate property. The Hindu Succession Amendment Act 2005 has brought significant changes, especially regarding gender equality. Understanding these concepts is essential for navigating inheritance, succession, and property management in Hindu families. The interplay between law, tradition, and individual rights shapes the dynamics of family and property. Principles of Hindu family law have practical implications for taxation, inheritance, and business. The concept of HUF is recognized for tax purposes, and property classifications affect succession and partition. Business partnerships involving family funds require careful management to protect individual and collective interests. Understanding these rules helps families make informed decisions about property, succession, and business venture. Hindu family law has evolved over time, adapting to social changes and legal reforms. The inclusion of daughters as Coparceners reflects a shift towards gender equality. The Hindu Gains of Learning Act 1930 and the Hindu Succession Amendment Act 2005 have modernized property rights and succession. These changes ensure that Hindu families remain relevant and responsive to contemporary needs, balancing tradition with progress. Managing joint family property presents challenges, including disputes over partition, succession, and blending of assets. Clear documentation, understanding of legal principles, and effective communication are essential for resolving conflicts. Families must balance collective interests with individual rights, ensuring fair distribution and management of assets. Legal advice and mediation can help navigate complex situations and maintain harmony. Proper documentation is crucial for managing property and succession in Hindu families. Wills, gift deeds, and partition agreements clarify intentions and prevent disputes. Courts rely on the language of documents and surrounding circumstances to determine property rights. Families should maintain accurate records and seek legal guidance when drafting documents, ensuring that assets are managed and transferred according to law and intention. Inclusion of daughters as Coparceners has advanced gender equality in Hindu family law. Women now have equal rights to property, succession, and partition. This change empowers women, strengthens families, and aligns with modern values. Understanding and embracing gender equality ensures fair treatment and opportunities for all members, fostering unity and progress within Hindu families. Legal remedies are available for resolving disputes over property, succession, and partition. Courts interpret documents, apply legal principles, and ensure fair distribution of assets. Mediation and negotiation can help families reach amicable solutions, preserving relationships and minimizing conflict. Understanding legal remedies empowers families to protect their rights and interests, ensuring justice and harmony. The concept of Hindu undivided family HUF has significant tax implications. HUF is recognized as a separate entity for taxation, allowing families to manage assets and income collectively. Understanding tax rules and compliance is essential for optimizing benefits and avoiding legal issues. Families should consult tax professionals to ensure proper management and reporting of HUF assets and income. Modern trends in Hindu family law reflect changing social values, legal reforms, and economic realities. The shift towards gender equality, recognition of individual rights, and adaptation to business partnerships highlight the dynamic nature of Hindu law. Families must stay informed and adapt to new rules, ensuring that property and succession are managed effectively and fairly. Hindu family law balances tradition with progress, preserving cultural values while embracing legal reforms. The interplay between joint family structures, coparcenary, and individual rights ensures that families remain strong and adaptable. Embracing change while respecting tradition helps families thrive, manage assets, and resolve disputes effectively. Understanding joint Hindu family, coparcenary property classifications, and legal reforms is essential for managing assets and succession. The Hindu Succession Amendment, Act 2005, and the Hindu Gains of Learning Act 1930 have modernized property rights, ensuring gender equality and individual autonomy. Proper documentation, legal advice, and informed decision-making help families navigate challenges and protect their interests. Conclusion: Hindu family law offers a rich and complex framework for managing property, succession, and relationships. The evolution of coparcenary, inclusion of daughters, and distinction between joint and separate property reflect the adaptability of Hindu law. By understanding these principles, families can make informed decisions, resolve disputes, and ensure fair treatment for all members. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Hindu family law. Those interested in learning more about Hindu family law, coparcenary, and property rights, numerous resources are available. Legal textbooks, case law, and government publications provide detailed insights. Consulting legal professionals and attending seminars can enhance understanding and application of these principles. Staying informed ensures that families are equipped to manage assets, succession, and relationships effectively.